Ubisoft doesn't just virtue signal its wokeness, it actually lives by it. A recent advertisement for its upcoming mentorship program developed at Ubisoft reveals that the company is actually discriminating against men, specifically just based on the fact that they are men, based on their sex. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Roll this up over at thatparkplace.com. And on the official Ubisoft website, the developer says this: at Ubisoft, we want to build the most creative, diverse, and inclusive teams. And that's exactly what Develop at Ubisoft is all about: empowering and supporting underrepresented genders. There's only two genders. They're male and female. So I'm not really sure what they are even talking about there. I think based on most data, there's actually more women than men in the world. But nevertheless, they then clearly states the program provides mentorship opportunities for women and non-binary individuals. There's no such thing. Students or fresh graduates with less than 2 years of experience interested in video games to develop their skill set in game design and programming. We want to empower you to learn, grow, and become the very best developer that you can be. The program is open to candidates from the United States of America, which one would assume and has to follow U.S. law, which prohibits discrimination based on sex, something Ubisoft is clearly doing with this mentorship program. There is a screenshot from their website where it clearly states that they only want, quote unquote, women and non-binary individuals, which just simply don't exist. If that above introductory paragraph was not enough evidence that Ubisoft is discriminating based on sex for this Develop at Ubisoft program, the company's website makes it clear that one must, quote, identify as a woman or a non-binary individual in order to be eligible for the program. There's a list of eligibility criteria here. What is the number one bullet point? It says identify as a woman or a non-binary individual. This is clearly discrimination. If you're a man, you simply just don't qualify for this mentorship program. I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer, not a legal analyst or anything like that, but this looks like it is illegal activity to me. Even if you go into, they have there's like two tracks that you can get into as part of this program. There is the game design, and then there's like the programming track. And in the, I think it's the game design track, they actually are asking people to build a brand new operator for a new audience for Rainbow Six Siege. I literally think they are trying to just get people to do work for free almost and calling it a mentorship program. So that just kind of looks nefarious in and of itself just from that angle, let alone this fact that they are clearly discriminating based on one's sex. And then this was brought to my attention by my fellow YouTuber, Dread Roberts. He says this program is not new and has been around for at least 4 years. And in fact, it has been. There's a blog post on the Ubisoft website discussing previous mentees and mentors sharing their experience. And it says this: for the 4th year in a row, the Develop at Ubisoft mentorship program helped promising women and non-binary talents shape their dream career in gaming. Over the past months, 90 mentors from 19 Ubisoft studios welcomed 90 mentees who brought a fresh perspective and new ideas into game design and programming and got to develop their own creative project. One wonders how many of these people actually went on to work at various Ubisoft studios and why their stock price is absolutely in the gutter. Almost an 85% decline in the past 5 years, which that it will be very important as we work through this video and article here. Ironically, Ubisoft Senior Vice President of Production Technology, Guillemette Picard, who sponsors the program, talks about its importance by citing her own history of male and female mentors. I've had great mentors over the years, men and women who helped me grow and shape my professional experience. Mentorship was and still is a rich and humbling journey. It allowed me to take a step back, challenge myself, seek new perspectives, and build my network. And I believe that it is as enriching for the mentor as it is for the mentee. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about the potential of Develop at Ubisoft to empower women and non-binary individuals who are in the early stages of their professional life in our industry, a space where we are still underrepresented. No kind of qualifier on that. No actual discussion on potentially why there are less women than men, despite there being more women in the world than men. Maybe it's the fact that there are certain occupations where men gravitate towards. Programming, video game design might be one of those. Don't see her talking about mentorship programs for construction workers, for oil rig employees, or any other kind of grueling manual labor type jobs. Underrepresented there, but doesn't seem to be a problem whatsoever. What about female dominated occupations? Is that a problem? Are males actually underrepresented, or is it fine that males don't have as many people working in occupations that might have more females working in them? Maybe things such as a nurse or a teacher, elementary school teachers. Is that a problem? I don't think so. It's utterly ridiculous. Pure identity politics. Clear trying to just push an agenda for the agenda's sake. Dred Roberts also discovered that this mentorship program appears to be part of something called Project Rise at Ubisoft. Ubisoft's then vice president of global diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, Rashi Sika, discussed this project back in September 22 in an interview on Ubisoft's website. Sika is now the company's chief diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and social impact officer. When asked about what the key priorities of her team is over the next few months in that interview, she replied thus: "We have several exciting key projects that are about to launch. The first is our first ever global self-identification program, where we will invite team members to share additional information voluntarily and confidentially about their identity, such as gender identity, race, ethnicity, or disability. This information will help us to understand the experience of each person from a much more inclusive lens and allow us to take actions that truly support our colleagues." It's actually much more nefarious than that, which we will get into here in a little bit. They're clearly using this to reshape their entire company based on these superficial things such as race, sex, etc., things that are like immutable. You can't really change. And when I say superficial, not based on actual merit, when you're talking about skill, talent, etc., things like that. She goes on and says this: "We know we have room for growth when it comes to the representation of racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity." So that's literally why they're wanting their employees to do this, so they can literally hit the check boxes for the things that they want to do. We got to have less white men. We got to make sure that we document that we have less white men. That's literally what this is all about. This is a racist company to the core. Only a racist company would implement some kind of policy like this. Absolutely disgusting and despicable, both within Ubisoft and the gaming industry at large. With this in mind, we created a multi-year strategy called Project Rise. There it is, Project Rise, to ensure that Ubisoft better reflects the diversity of our players with a focus on racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity. It's interesting that they are saying that they're going to reflect the diversity of their players, yet they don't even know what their employee demographics are. That's why they had to implement a voluntary a form to collect that information, and their own employees had to give that. So interesting that they didn't know that about their own employees, but they somehow are going to have their company reflect their the players, the people that actually purchase their products. I wonder how that they actually know that, if they don't even know what the demographics of their employees are. Or at least they didn't know up until they did this conducted this survey. Nevertheless, she goes on and says this: "With this in mind, we created a we read that. Over the course of the next 5 years, we will focus on 3 key areas: talent acquisition, internal talent development, and external talent pipeline development." So clearly, looks like they are doing some kind of race and sex-based hiring policies. Again, that is illegal in the United States. She continues saying, "We know that different people experience life in the workplace differently. There are different opportunities and barriers that we all face. In the workplace, addressing barriers requires us to be specific, targeted, and focused in our actions. At Ubisoft, we will be focusing on 4 key dimensions: gender equality, race and ethnicity, LGBTQIA plus inclusion, and disability inclusion. I would be remiss if we didn't speak about our games, right? Over the past months, we've been working with the recently created inclusive games and content team to build their roadmap focused on ensuring diversity and inclusion is at the heart of all our games." I've cited that on multiple occasions. It's all over their website. So you should be familiar with that if you watched my previous videos on that or read the previous articles on that Park Place. Thanks to our stellar accessibility team, we're also continuing to work hard to make our games more accessible. Right now, the team is focused on bringing an accessibility by design approach that embeds accessibility in our games. from the early stages of development and ensures that more players can get the full experience of our universes. I don't have any issues with the accessibility stuff. I actually think that stuff is really good. And that's why they crouch it in with all the identity politics stuff to try and make it think like you're going after people who have actual physical impairments and physical disabilities and things like that, rather than them just pushing racism and sexism, feminism, etc., misandry, yada, yada, yada. You get the deal. So in that same interview, Seeker revealed that this program had increased the percentage of female employees from 22% to 25%. Isn't that interesting? Remember, the first thing she said she did was to get that survey, right? So people would self-identify all of these demographic things. So that's literally what they're using it for. That's what that was for. It is literally so they can track how well they are doing their diversity agenda, how well they are hiring people based on sex and race. Like that is literally what that was for. And then you can now document this and say that they actually have increased it by from 22% to 25%. And they're saying that that's actually like a metric that they are citing as like a good thing. To me, this is utterly ridiculous. It shows that they aren't actually hiring based on talent. They aren't hiring based on skill. They aren't hiring based on how they can improve their company. They aren't hiring based on maybe who fits the certain teams the best. They aren't hiring based on things you would expect people to hire on. They're literally hiring people based on their sex and based on their race. That is what this company is doing, and that is illegal in the United States. She went on and said this: gender equality has been a priority at Ubisoft for a while now, both in terms of increasing the representation of women in the organization and supporting the development of women across different levels of leadership. Thanks to the great work of our talent acquisition teams and the investment of our HR leadership, women now represent 25% of our team members, up from 22% in 2020. A third of all hires over the last year were women. Additionally, we have 42% of women on our executive committee and 45% of women on our board at Ubisoft. So I think also from these statements, I think we can gather, although this interview was conducted in 2022, it does seem like that survey went out in 2020, and that's probably when they started this Project Rise around 4 or 5 years ago. And as I said, that is an interesting number, because if you look at the stock price for Ubisoft in the past 5 years, it has declined nearly 85% in the last 5 years. So since they've implemented Project Rise, since they've embraced all of this DEI nonsense, since they've stopped hiring based on merit and focused based on race and sex, their stock price has plummeted 85%. And if you look at their games catalog, you even see like the statements from the CEO basically admitting, I think it was the CEO, one of their top executives from Ubisoft, I can't recall off the top of my head right now, but basically admitting that they weren't making good games and that that this year was the year that they were going to get back to that. Well, not the case. Star Wars Outlaws, massively soft sales, super buggy, just utterly ridiculous stuff happening, complete pandering, utter woke job. You look at X Defiant, there's already reports that after initial success or interest into it, people have completely tuned out of that game. Massive fall off of the player base. And then we also can look at Skull and Bones, just kind of dropped last month on Steam, not doing very well over there either. And then the Pandora game as well that they released, the Avatar game, looks like it has very soft sales as well, almost on par with Star Wars Outlaws. That's how bad both those games performed, interestingly enough, coming from Ubisoft's massive entertainment studio. So not looking good for Ubisoft over the past 5 years, since they've really embraced a lot of this woke DEI hiring nonsense and kind of made it a part of their institutional organization. It's an absolute disaster. And it's not going to get any better until they actually get rid of this stuff. And this stuff doesn't work. It's not surprising that we've seen the stock price drop almost 85% because it doesn't work. We had a report from the Wall Street Journal in June that revealed that woke policies do not lead to growth, and that a study by McKinsey conducted back in 2015 that touted the benefits of woke business policies and was basically I don't know what the right word to use here. It was basically what a lot of people said is like, this is why you need to adopt woke business policies, because it actually does indeed drive growth. It'll increase profits, increase your stock price, etc. Drives growth, yada, yada, yada. Well, interestingly enough, That study has not been replicated, and the firm's methods to determine its results are being questioned. James McIntosh wrote in the Wall Street Journal, academics have tried to repeat McKinsey's findings and failed, concluding that there is, in fact, no link between profitability and executive diversity. And the methodology of McKinsey's early studies, which helped create the widespread belief that diversity is good for profits, is being questioned. Academics can't replicate McKinsey's study precisely because it keeps secret the names of the companies it used, but a paper published this year finds that McKinsey's methodology doesn't show benefits from diversity for S&P 500 companies for a range of profitability metrics. It isn't that a lack of diversity is good for profits either. It's just there's no link. So not surprising that this is absolutely backfiring. And they've hired a bunch of people who seemingly are unqualified for the jobs because they've just basically been hiring them on whether they are a woman and based on their race. So this is the latest on Ubisoft. The company is literally just self-imploding. It's destroying itself. And again, they have no one to blame but themselves. This is just it's just a disaster on all fronts. I feel like every single day there is a new giant L that Ubisoft is taking, whether it is with Star Wars Outlaws, whether it is with Assassin's Creed Shadows, whether it is with their own investment firm saying that they need to sell the company to get back to doing what they should have been doing in the first place, which is making good games for gamers that want to purchase the games instead of trying to embrace this whole idea of growth from outside investors. And obviously their idea of growth is embracing woke DEI policies that do not work. So this is the latest on Ubisoft. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.